But when the harvest time came, they had a bumper crop, 10 times the normal harvest. Then that's when the farmer understood and realized that it was his mistake. He didn't understand Tukaram's power. It was not Tukaram's power, it was the fact that he surrendered to something transcendental. So sometime in your life, you have to inject your thoughts. Just at least once in a while think of what makes me tick? What makes the world tick? What is this supreme force that has created the world, is maintaining the world perfectly to perfection? There's a beautiful combination of science and aesthetics and everything merged into it. Have you ever seen an unaesthetic, ugly flower? Even in the wild, if you go, the combination of colors and form and textures is so magnificent. There is never any ugliness in nature. The ugliness comes only when the human being comes into force. So the shift, unless you bring the shift from selfish to unselfish, and at least some moments of your life shift your attention to the transcendental, you are not going to achieve any extent of success in the world. And therefore it is that in the Indian, this doesn't mean that you should, I don't know what your concept of spirituality is. This doesn't mean that you should give up your careers or your homes or families and go to the Himalayas, please. First of all, there's no room in the Himalayas for all of us. Secondly, it's unwarranted. What the challenge before us is to bring the serenity of the Himalayas in Bombay city, not to take the disturbance of Bombay to the Himalayas. So, this shift, the three types of action. Once you make the shift from selfish to unselfish to selfless, what happens is the intellect gets focused. There's a chapter 2 verse 41 says, the intellect is determined and focused in this. The thoughts of those who are not determined are scattered and endless. You see, if you have to use your talent to achieve success, you must have focus. You must have determination, you must have commitment. This comes when you shift from selfish, unselfish to selfless. And the moment you do that, the intellect remains focused. No longer are you distracted. No longer is your mind running in 100 directions. Today the problem, you see, the young people nowadays, the younger generation has enormous intelligence, enormous mental resources, much more, I think, they're far more intelligent than us. But the problem is, they are also 10 times more distracted, because there are so many avenues for distraction. The same young person who is distracted and demotivated, the moment you give him a higher ideal to work for, instantly there is a terrific change in that person. So, the thoughts, the intellect is determined and focused. The thoughts of those not determined, meaning people who don't have a higher ideal, are scattered and endless. So your greed, your passion, your craving is endless if you don't have a higher goal. And then once you have this, what is interesting is he says here there is neither loss of effort nor counterproductive effect. Meaning, when you have a higher ideal, it's a win-win situation. Whatever happens, you'll win. There is no loss of effort. In selfish activity, sometimes you put in a lot of effort and the result is not commensurate with it. It never happens in unselfish activity. Nor is there counterproductive effect. Even a little dharma ensures against great fear. So the accent is on the little. Shankaracharya also in the Bhaja Govindam says, Bhagavad Gita kinchidadhita. Kinchit means just a little. You need to study the Gita, the spiritual knowledge, just a little. You don't need to make a full-time vocation out of it. But that little is enough to bring about a change in your personality. So therefore, the next thing that you need to do is identify your swadharma. Swadharma means your core interest in life. What are you designed for? What are your most powerful traits? In India, you are considered a success only if you become an engineer or a doctor. As if these are the only two professions in the world. And then you have people who are not designed for engineering at all, somehow or the other struggling through 4 years of engineering school. It's not required. And the best part is you turn out so many engineers that at the end of it all, you're not doing engineering, you end up selling soap. What is the point? So what is required is identify your swadharma. What is your core interest? What is your talent? What is it that you would like to do in your lifetime? And then invest your efforts, your time, your resources in that. You will be successful. The Gita says, paradharmo bhayavaha. If you choose a field that is alien to your nature, it's the most frightening thing. This talent was given to you by some benevolent force. What is required of you is to redeploy this talent as thanksgiving to that force. And the more you do it, the higher the ideal for which you work, the greater is your efficiency and productivity. So, yajna represents sacrificial activity. Yajna means sacrifice. You have to be able to sacrifice your pettiness, your small-mindedness, your selfishness at the altar of a higher ideal. And when you do that, you gain the power, you gain the dynamism, you gain the energy of the higher ideal. So, next is, you see, when you fix a higher ideal, it unlocks your potential. It releases the energy which is otherwise blocked by your selfishness, and it gives peace of mind. An ordinary Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi became a Mahatma by just this shift, fixing a higher ideal. An ordinary Narendra became an extraordinary Swami Vivekananda by this shift, sacrifice. In the Gita, Krishna says, this world is not for the non-sacrificer. So if you don't sacrifice, you won't get even the world, never mind happiness and spiritual growth. Then comes the 6-point path to perfect action. This is from the 3rd chapter, verse 30 of chapter 3. If you forget everything else that we've discussed and just put this into for your life, you will definitely achieve success. So what is this? This 6-point path to perfect action is divided into 2. 1, how do you generate energy? The second, this energy that you have generated, how do you prevent it from dissipating in unproductive channels? So number 1, there should be focus on the ideal. Having fixed a higher goal, all your energies, all your thoughts must be focused on that ideal. And that this is called consistency. Consistency is defined as the intellect directing all your actions, all your mental energies towards that one goal. Consistency is very important. You know, Lance Armstrong says, the fact that he is winning consistently, winning all the time, against all odds, people are wondering, you know, how does he manage to win? He says it's very simple. Because when he's cycling, he says, there is not a single day when he doesn't go out and cycle. Come what may, whether it's snowing or raining or there's an earthquake, he goes out and does his training. And when he goes out and trains in snow, in rain, the others are not there. You take an Indian athlete, they start training 3 months before the Olympics. He says he starts training the day after the competition. He's just barely won one day. The next day onwards he starts training. This is called consistency. How many of us have this consistency? We are consistently inconsistent. One day, you know, we have these bursts of energy. Some of us once a week, some of us once a month, some of us once in 6 months we wake up and say, oh, I need to do something with my life. Consistent. Second, surrender to that ideal. There must be a sense of loyalty. There must be a sense of feeling. You must be moved by that ideal. It can't be a clinical unemotional pursuit of a goal. It must mean something to you. It must be sacred to you. Only when the goal is sacred to you will the best in you come out. And the third, all this must be backed by dynamic activity. The more you work, the more you act, the more energy you create within yourself. In fact, it's the couch potatoes, it's the people who are inactive, who are tired. You look at a person who's inactive, he's tired from the moment he wakes up. You take a person who's very active, engages in some sporting activity every day, is full of life. So there are three things in fact, that create energy in you. One is acting. The more you act, the more energy you create. Second is surrender. The higher the goal to which you surrender, the greater is the energy you get. Become more energetic. The third, focus. The more you focus on the ideal, the more consistent you are, the more power, the more energy you get. Now this energy that you have created within you dissipates into 3 unproductive channels. And these unproductive channels are worry over the past, anxiety for the future, and excitement in the present. Every one of us goes through this. A typical example, you see, this is magnified in sport. In cricket, you have the nervous 90s. In tennis, in a tiebreaker, who wins and who loses depends on this focus. So this is called concentration. Concentration is the intellect focusing the mind on the present action without allowing it to dissipate into the past, which is worry, future, anxiety for the fruit. So a person who's able to keep the mind on the present job without allowing it to slip into the dead past and the unborn future is a person who succeeds. Because let's remember one thing, towards the end, let's say the 8 finalists at Wimbledon or a test match, the players in a test match, all these people are more or less the same. The physical prowess is more or less the same. What makes the difference? What makes one person win and the other person lose is in the mind. Concentration. So, the 6 C's of excellence are, number 1, core interest, we've already discussed this, commitment. When you commit yourself to a goal, you don't allow anything to come in your way. Competence is a combination of intelligence and hard work. The two very rarely coincide in a person. Those who are intelligent are not hardworking. Those who are hardworking are usually not intelligent. But competence is a combination of the two. Then cooperation, team spirit. In any endeavor, you see, one person comes into the limelight, say the Wimbledon champion, but there are a whole lot of other people who have contributed to this person winning and becoming a celebrity. So when each one of us achieves success, we must understand that every one of us, any endeavor has back office workers, people behind who've slogged so that you achieve success. And you have to be able to understand, give credit to them, and get them share your success with them. This is what it is. This is what cooperation is. And cooperation comes, team spirit comes, not where you have common interests or common things that keep you together. What keeps you together is one common ideal, a shared ethic. When you have that, when you have a higher ideal, you automatically attract like-minded people. You attract other sacrificial people. This is one of the most outstanding things about sacrificial living, is that when you work in a spirit of service and sacrifice, you automatically attract the best in the world towards you. Then comes concentration. We've discussed this. The intellect directs the mind to the present job without allowing it to dissipate into or meander into the unproductive channels of the past and the future, and consistency. So if you remember these 6 C's and implement them in your life, you will achieve success. Next comes, this is as far as the intellectual appeal, next comes gratitude, which is an emotional thing. We've seen when you become aware of all that you have been blessed with in life, you develop a sense of indebtedness and you're grateful. You're grateful, say, towards your parents, for what they have given you. You're grateful for your family. You're grateful to your school, your teachers. You're grateful to the country. Have you ever thought of it? In India, in at least the last 55 years, we have, by and large, enjoyed a certain sense of peace and tranquility. There are sporadic events, but by and large, we're in peace. When I went to Lebanon some years ago, I met a young girl who was 16 years old, and she said she had never gone to school in her life. She had never known what life is like without civil war, because they had 17 years of war, and she was born after the war started. That's when I understood we need to be grateful to the country for giving us peace, some law and order. So and of course you need to be grateful to that supreme power that has blessed you with so many things. So when you're grateful, devotion or surrender is considered as faith in a God that you can't see, you don't know its presence, you don't know what or where God is. And we slip. There was a guru who went into the jungles, and just before he went into the jungles, he gave his disciples, he had a group of disciples with him, a big lecture on faith. You must have faith in God. So the disciples said, okay, fine, we'll have faith in God. And as they went into the jungles, they heard an elephant trumpeting. And it was very close. I don't know if you've ever heard this. And when I went to Coorg, we had gone for a walk, and literally 10 feet away there was an elephant, not chained elephant, in the wild. Trumpeting, it sends goose pimples down. You shiver it's fearsome. So when that happened, apparently the guru started running for his life. So when the guru started running, the disciples asked him, Swamiji, what happened? I thought you said you had faith in God. So he said, yes, you stupid fool. I have faith in God, but I don't have faith in the elephant. So if you slip by just using words, that's not real faith. Faith is gratitude where you surrender to thy will, not my will. In the Lord's Prayer, you have thy will be done. It is an implicit understanding that I don't know what's good for me. I don't know what is in my best interest. And therefore, whatever happens, whatever comes to me, I will accept as what is in my best interest and what has been given to me by the Lord. This is what is faith. This doesn't mean that you don't do your best. You do your best. You fix an ideal, you work consistently, you do your best. But you must understand the fruit, what happens, is not in your hand. Whatever comes out of it, whether it be siddhi or asiddhi, whether it is success or failure, you accept as prasad from the Lord. This is true faith. This is true devotion. This is true gratitude. And the more you're able to align yourself with that higher power, the greater is your peace of mind, and out of that peace comes perfect action. Next comes detachment. Detachment is not physical, it's a mental understanding. See, first of all, let's understand what attachment is. Attachment is when you bind yourself to an object or being, a person or an object, because you feel a sense of incompleteness. You're not complete without that person. So you bind yourself to various objects and beings. And therefore, attachment is selfishness, actually. Attachment is not love, it is self-love. Because you cater to me in some way or the other, I say, I love you. So that's attachment. Detachment is true love, where you understand, accept, and love the person for what he or she is, irrespective of whether the person is doing something for you in return or not. So therefore, it's a mental attitude and not physical. Most people think detachment is physical, and very conveniently, you see, when people don't get on with their spouses, it's very easy to say, oh, I've taken up to spirituality, detach. That's escapism. Detachment is mental, and detachment can come only when you attach yourself to something higher. This detachment is spelled, you see, detachment can be very easily misunderstood for indifference. So what is the difference? In the 12th chapter, he gives two qualities of a bhakta, two qualities of a devotee, which have to coincide. The first quality, he says, is udasina. Udasina means unconcerned. If you are only unconcerned, then that's indifference. That's a terrible thing. But quickly, therefore, he follows it up with daksha. Daksha means expert, skillful. So, if you are only daksha and not udasina, if you are only skilled, all you are concentrating on is, okay, let me see how I can do this action perfectly, but you are attached to it. That also is no good. So therefore he gives a combination, udasina and daksha. You must work as if your life depends on it. But internally, you're completely detached from it. This combination, first of all, is difficult to understand. It's difficult to communicate in the short time that we have here. But my appeal to you is, many of these concepts, we're just touching upon it and proceeding because it's just it's presentation of an hour and a half, which is very, very little time. So therefore my appeal to you is, if you are inspired with even one idea that is presented here, please commit yourself to a sustained study and contemplation, thinking about these ideas. This needs to be done not regularly, but every day. So this combination, detachment, is what you call as, it's best put across as dispassionate passion, where at that physical level you get after it, you're dynamic, and you work with so much passion, so much drive and motivation that people would think that your life depends on it. And yet internally you're switched off. You're detached. Are you able to see the difference? So the combination of udasina and daksha is what makes for excellence. Then comes knowledge. If you implement all these things that have been discussed so far, you will be an outstanding success in the world. How do you meet with this success? The world over, people are looking for, are expecting India to come out with extraordinary performance. Even in today's paper, they said, isn't it? And there's an analysis of how India and China are going to be the future success stories. But somehow the ground reality is different. You and I don't actually experience that. But assuming 20 years down the road, at least the younger people here, will suppose their predictions come true and you meet with outstanding success and prosperity, what is important is, how are you going to take it? Is it going to get to your head and destroy you? So therefore knowledge is important. When you achieve success and prosperity, you must understand that knowledge that Vedanta gives is the basic understanding that everything that the world offers is meaningless, trivial, undependable, unreliable. Why? Because the world changes. The world, another word for world is change. Everything in the world changes. If success comes to you, it must go. Failure follows. If prosperity comes to you, it must go and will go sometime. What will follow is loss. If pleasure comes to you, it must be followed with sorrow. So the world is nothing but a mixture of pairs of opposites, and what comes to you, when it will come, how long it will stay with you, everything is uncertain, unknown. A wise person is one as Wordsworth said, will not depend on flimsy things that change, not only change, but flimsy things over which you have no control. So a person who understands this understands that everything in the world is transitory, therefore I will not sell my soul to that. And then comes the search for something permanent. And you find that permanent. You operate in the world, you transact with the world like everybody else. But within yourself, you have reached the state where you have gone beyond the pairs of opposites. This is very important.